Okay. So in last class, we saw that we could after creating the object, anytime you want to initialize or do anything with these variables, you have to always create an object, right? So that we know that we are going to work with this class. So after creating object in our previous class, we initialize these variables with the help of object dot variable name and then assign the value. So similarly, we did the same thing with for all the four variables. So this one was done in the main method. So that is one way of doing it. Uh, what are the other ways to do it? That's what we will learn now. So there are three ways. The first way which we know was by reference variable. Second, we will study by with the help of methods, and third, we will study with the help of constructor. So these three are different types of initializing the variables. So let's start with the reference variable. This we have already studied, so nothing new here. So what reference variable means is I'm going to reference this variable based on the object name. So my object is s in this case. So s dot id equals to 101. So this is like I'm referencing this variable with the help of this object which I've created and assigned the initial values to it. So this is what we call it like initialization through reference variable. This we have also practiced in the very first program which we executed. So I'm not going to repeat this again, but this is equivalent to this. So like you will write your object name followed by variable and assign some values to it. And this will be done inside the main method. And hence it's also called as like reference variable. So you're referencing or you're assigning a value in your main method to like your objects variable. So this is how it's read. Okay, so this was like the very basic one and the first method. So this is done inside main. That is also important. This is done inside main. The other two methods, what we are going to see, those initialization will be inside the class itself. And how do we do it? We'll see that. So second one is through methods. So how do we use method in order to initialize the values, right? So what the meaning of method is nothing but you will be creating a method in your class wherever the blueprint is, where whichever has your variables, your methods, and so on. So in that you will add a new method, which and the whole purpose of the method would be to assign values to these variables. So how do we do that? We'll see that. Let me open the program. Looks like my clips is dead. Okay, so for second type of initialization, which is through method, we'll be looking at two programs called student.java. This has the class and this has the blueprint. And the main method is in object method initialize ini dot java. So this contains the main method. So while practicing initialization through methods, you have to refer to these two programs. Okay. So I have student class. Here I'm saying int ID string. What all do I take? ID name and course name string course. Okay, I have my main method here, and in main method I will create an object called s1 equals to new of student. I'll keep this as the basic. This we have already learned. Now, if I want to initialize these variables and I do not want to do it in my main method. My main method, I want it to be super clean, very neat, and all the initialization, declaration, and everything has to, I want it to be done in the student class itself. So in order to do that, we have two types, two things. One is constructor, one is with the help of methods. So we'll first try with the help of methods. And after we understand this concept, we'll move to the constructor one. Okay. So for this one, I'll just say I'll create a void type of method. Why void? Because I do not want to return anything. I just want to come here and assign values to these three variables, right? That's my goal. So I'll say void initial, or I'll say initial value. Okay. I'll say initial value. And I have three values which I want it to be written. So how it works is I'll write void, which is the return type. Then I will give the method name, which is this. And then I will say what are some things which this method is accepting. So this method should accept three variables, which is ID. So I'll say int ID. Then I'll say string name, and then I'll say string course. Okay, so I have to mention what is the values which I want to set. And once I do this, then I have to mention, like, what is what. So let's say, uh, you know, instead of ID, I'll just to differentiate between these two variables. As in, like, this is my class variables, and these are my method variables, which I'm going to get from outside. Like, so these values will be given to this program from outside. So what I'll do is I'll call it new ID, new name, and new course. So I'm keeping this variable name a little bit different. There's a reason to it, which I'll be explaining shortly. But for now, let's have these values as NID and name and end course. Okay. Now, when I get inside this initializer, I will start saying what this value is and where this value should go. So I want this ID, the ID which we have, to be an ID. So this ID here is equivalent to this ID here. This NID is nothing but some value which will be transferring from our main method and it will come to this one. So similarly, I have name, and that will be equivalent to n name. And then we have course. Course will be equal to new course. That's it. Value of this is done. So once this method is created, Once this initial value method is created, now we can start using this method in order to provide our object with a value. So this time I'll say s1 dot my method name. So I'll say initial value. So this will be my method, and then open bracket, and then give an ID. So ID is 1. Name, let's say Shrikant. So I'll just write Shrikant. And then finally course. I'll say automation testing. And that's it. So what I'm doing here is telling, I know these values. I want it to be assigned to S1 object. So instead of doing the reference variable, reference type of assignment, what I've done is I've created a method in my main class, in my class. And here I'm saying that, okay, this method will accept 3 values, which is ID, name, and course. And once we send this value, make sure you assign it to respective variables, which is present here. So after this line of s1 dot initial value is executed, now here, if you try to system out println, if you try to do sys out println, um, or like sys out is nothing but system dot out dot println. So like the short form for that is sys out. So once we do this, and if we write s1 dot id, and once we try to see this value, it will be nothing but the one which we have sent. Similarly, if you try to display s1 dot name, Shrikant will be displayed. If you try to display s1 dot course, 80 will be displayed. So this is one way of initialization. I will show this with the help of a program from here. So we have student, which has ID, name, and course. And we are creating a method called void, a method called initiate values, which has return type of void. And we have 3 variables here. So we have to give the type of data we are expecting, and then the name where the value will come and sit in. So type of data, and then the variable name, type of data, variable name. So these values, so this SID will store zero, nothing initially, but once this line is executed, so all these 3 values, which is one Shrikant and computer science, will be copied from here, and it will be taken to this place, and it will be stored in these 3 things. So these 3 variables. So Eclipse is going crazy. Okay. So SID will be 1, S name will be Shrikant, and S course will be computer science. And now after line number 8 is executed, from line number 9, SID's value is always 1, and hence we are trying to assign value of 1 to ID, and then the value of S name will be always Shrikant. So we are trying to assign Shrikant into the variable name, and then finally the course, it is computer science, and we'll assign that to course. So when we call this method s1.initiate values, my control flow will go from line number 10 from this code to this one, line number 8. It will execute from 8 till 12 everything, and at the end of 12, like the flow has to go back. So it will execute 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the flow returns back to this line number 10. So it says that, okay, this has been executed. Now I'll move to line number 11, and then the line number 11 gets executed, right? And with the help of this, um, with the help of this, we can successfully initiate the values. This also has like one advantage, which is like in your program. But before even going till that level, let me first execute the initial part, which is, let me comment this, and I'll try to display the value of what we have just loaded. Mhm. Okay, so I've created a object of student. Then I'm sending few values to the initiate value method, and then finally I'm running the display method. And if I come and see display method, it's nothing but I'm just trying to display name, ID, and course. If I run this code now, you can see it says name is Shrikant, ID is one, and course is computer science. So this is like initial and basic level of initialization with the help of method. One advantage which we have here is we do not have to, um, we do not have to write this method several times in order to change change the value of the change the values inside the variables. So I just have to call initiate values method and pass new set of values. Even that will help me easily go and replace the value of whatever it was earlier. So if I change this, so in line number 10, the value of let me display this s1 dot display. So this is to just show that we can, call this initiate value methods multiple time. And you can see that value initially was Shrikant 1 and computer science. But when we call the same initiate values method again with new set of values, you can see the values in name, ID, and course got replaced with the new values what we are passing here. So that's like one of the advantage, which is like if something which is changing very frequently, then it's better to put it in a method rather um, writing it in multiple lines. So if we had to do the reference variable here, let's suppose we had to do the reference variable, how we would do it is we would have to do s1 dot id equals to 1, and then s1 dot name equals to Shrikant, and then computer science. And anytime I want to make changes to these values again, I have to do this. I have to do the same lengthy process. So with the help of methods as initialization, it helps us in it helps us by saving some effort in rewriting those lines again and again. So that's it. Do you have any questions on initialization with the help of methods?
Which method we commonly use? These are the first one.
Again, that depends from program to program. As I said, if you have multiple places where you want to change the values, or like multiple times if you want to change the values, then you can go with methods. But if it is just one time, you're assigning a value and uh, you're just using the first time assigned values for the rest of the course, or like for the rest of the code, then you can use constructor or reference variable. So we'll study constructor, and then you'll know why constructor, and yeah, so it would depend on the way your program is. So sometimes you'll use this, sometimes you'll use constructor, sometimes you'll use reference variable. So you should know all the three types which are existing, and when you're programming in or when you're developing a framework, you can use one of these logic or combination of these logics. It's not like you can use only one of this. You can use all the three in one program also. Mhm. Okay, now let me go to next one, which is with the help of constructor. Okay, so here we have to refer to two programs, which is constructor student.java. This is my class file, and initial inti constructor object is my main method class. So for constructor concept, make sure you refer to these two programs. Okay. Um, Before getting into this topic, you should understand what does constructor mean. So constructor, as the word says, right? It's the word is constructor, so that means it has to be called or it has to be executed while something is being constructed, right? So constructor gets activated during the time of object creation. So while object creation is done, constructor is called. So hence, like, it's called like constructor because we are trying to construct an object, and while constructing an object we can use or take the advantage of these constructors. So which means that when I'm creating my object, I can pass the values, the initial values, directly while creating the object. So when we pass the value, it will get assigned right away while creating objects. So we do not have to do two-step process. So how do we use, or like how do we create this constructor is very simple. You will first have your class, public class. You will have a class name. You'll have your variables mentioned, and then goes your constructor. Your constructor will have same name as your class name. So you can see that constructor has the class name here is constructor student, and constructor method name is also constructor student. So the class name and the constructor name or constructor method name has to be same. Why same? Because this is executed while my object is being created. So Java has to know that, okay, this is not a generic method, this is constructor, so it has to get executed uh, every time you create an object. Okay, this is important. By default, all the class which you create in Java, in Java by default, like whenever you create a class, so let's say here you created student class, right? By default, Java assumes that there is this constructor, which is nothing but empty constructor. So if you give a value to this, then you are kind of overriding it. But if you or like if you're writing it here in your program, then you're overwriting the default one. But if you do not write it, then this is supplied to your program by Java by default. Like, you do not have to mention an empty constructor. It's like given to you by Java. Okay, now let's go back to this and I'll show you how it works. So I have a constructor, and in constructor I have to again say what are the values which I'll be getting. And when I get these values, where am I going and assigning them? The same thing as initial value method, right? So this is very similar. Also, you have to notice that constructor method does not have any return type. So all the other method has return type. It could be void, it could be anything what I'm returning back, but constructors will not have a return. It is just used for initialization, or you can also do some operation, but it is mostly used for initialization. Okay, so here, if I want to create an object, so I'm saying constructor s1 equals to new of constructor student, and then pass the three values. So you can see while creating my object, I'm passing some values, and I'm saying constructor student and passing some values. So this is nothing but I'm telling my Java to go create an object, and while creating an object, I know that there is a constructor which accepts three values. So I will call that constructor here directly. So it calls the constructor. So while creating the object, earlier what it used to do, earlier what we see while creating an object, it will make an empty space. It will say S1 or S2 object and then ID, name and course. So earlier it was just this, like empty. But with the help of constructor, you're telling it to go ahead and put ID equals to 1, name equals to Shrikant, then course equals to 80. So that's the difference. While this object is being created or constructed, we will be adding the new values. So that's how like constructor is used, and that's how like constructor is like super useful, where you do not have to do multiple steps um, in order to execute, or in order to write your program. You can do it in one shot with the help of constructor. And this is again asked in many interviews, like what a constructor is, and how do you create an object with the help of constructor, or like how do you create an object and initialize its value with the help of constructor, would be the type of interview questions which you'll be getting. Okay. Now here we have already assigned, or like after executing line number 7, the value of ID will be the values which we are passing. And after this part, we are here displaying the name, ID, and course method. So that remains the same, nothing new here. I'll try to first display and then come into the topic which is in these two lines. So let me go back. And then this code. So you can see that I've created my S1 object first, passed this value, and then displayed it. So when I did s1.display, you can see that all my values are present here. The second is constructor s2, new constructor. And here it says I'm passing new values, 1, Selim, and testing. And you can see that when I display it, the new values are present here. So this method or constructor method can only be called while initializing, or like while object is being created. You cannot call it later on. So if after my object is created, how I said s2.display, I cannot say s2.constructor student. It will not work. Constructor will only be used or called while my object is being created, or when my object is being created. So if I compare this with methods can be called any number of times, but constructor will only be called one time while the object is being created. That's it. Um, okay. I do not want you to get confused with this. So just ignore this part for now. When we study more about methods, that time you'll learn this. So just ignore this part of Boolean. We'll get back to this in future. But constructor topic is only so much, which is like while creating your object, you will be calling this constructor method, and that gets executed. Constructor has same name as your class name. What else? It does not have any return type. And the default constructor which every class has is empty constructor. If you decide to change uh, any of if you decide to add something, so let me see if I can use, there was one part where we couldn't do something, so let me check if that is possible. Creating a new object just to make sure that if I execute this line, will it work? It does not work. So it's like, if you, there's one more thing, if you create a constructor, right? If you create a constructor, then the default constructor which you created, or which Java provides, which is empty constructor, will be gone, right? So if you add any constructor, then your default constructor is gone. You have to recreate it if you want your object creation to work with the help of this line in with line number 17. So here it's like you're just creating an object, you're not initializing with any value, but this constructor was provided by Java, like by default. But if you add any new constructor of your which meets your needs, then you have to make sure that you either add this constructor, or you mention it somewhere that you cannot create an object without providing the values to your constructor. So there is two things which you have to like remember. And can see that if I remove this constructor, line 14 to 16, which is the default constructor which I have, empty constructor, then I'll start getting error saying that this constructor is undefined, as in this constructor is not present here. Okay. So any questions on constructor? Okay. Then I'll move to the next topic. Let me see if everything is present, or I've mentioned everything which I needed to. Initialization through constructor. Okay, that's done. Next topic is Java methods. Oh, initialization through constructor, that's done. A method is set of code. More about method, then constructor. Okay, so whatever I've explained, it is just the same. So I'll just go through these points with you. But before even getting to these methods, let me just finish the concept of constructor and the comparisons. I cannot complete the comparison until I finish Java methods. Okay, let me finish the rest of the part of a method. Uh, and let me see if I have missed something. No. Okay. So methods. Now, what methods are? So methods are nothing but a part of the code which gets executed when explicitly called from your main method, right? So if you want to execute this line number or like this method display, you have to explicitly call it in your main method, which is s1.display, or you can call it even inside this class. So it's like you have to but call it in order for the method to get executed, and then you have to meet all the criteria for it. So while creating a method, there are some things which you should know. The first thing is, while creating a method, you should have a return type. So return type could be anything, like it could be int, it could be a string, It could be any of the data type, or if you do not want to return anything, then you will write void. So either one of the data type or void. Then you can add method name. So name of the method, followed by, or you can have as many arguments as you want. So arguments are nothing but the values, or you can, even if you do not want to have any values, that is also fine. So you can have various values or no values at all. Okay. If you have a return type, if you do not have return type, that's fine. But if you have a return type, so let's say if I had int and then I say method one, then this int means your program is expecting for a return value. So if you do not have a return value, then you will get an error. So you have to provide a return. So let's say if we are trying to add two numbers, the value of addition is will result in sum. So I'll say int is my return type. I'm saying my method is called add. And let's say if I'm getting the value of int a and int b from outside, then what will this become? I'll say sum, int sum, because I have to say what type of variable sum is a plus b, and then I have to return sum. Okay, so this is how the add functionality will work, or add method. So add method takes two values, it adds these two values and puts it into a variable called sum, and finally we have to say return sum. So in our main method, if we call it as, like, let's say class as calculator and int a, int b was the variables of a class and has the value of 1 and 2. So we will be creating an object first in order to assign the values. So main method, I'll say I have to first create object. So let me create an object. I do not want to write more or like give more examples. That's just confusing. So class is this is very confusing until I explain the concept of, oh, this can be int a and b. Would have to pass from outside. Let me rewrite this in a better format. So let's say I'll create a class called calc. It has two values, int a, int b, and here I'll say int add, int, or I'll just call it int add. Why to take values? Because I have it here already. And then I'll say sum or int sum equals to a plus b and return sum. In my main method, I'll create an object for cal called c1 equals to new of c1, and then here I'll say c1 dot a equals to 1 and c1 dot b equals to like 10, and I have to say c1 dot add. So this is this line here. We'll go and call this method of add. And since I have a return value here, I have to store the return value somewhere. So here in my main method, I have to store the value. So I have to write int and maybe call it as sum here. So after this gets executed, okay, let me write some other name. So addition result. So whatever values we get back in return will go to this one and get saved here. So add addition result value will be nothing but my sum value. So this is how like one generic method will look like. But in this method, I have not passed any values. We have also seen like in previous example that you can pass some values and then work with that also. But here my emphasis was on the return type. So if you have a return type, then this line is very important. This means that I'm going to return this value to the main program. And now this plays a big role because you have to tell like what type of data I'm returning to the main. And here also you have to tell what type of data you're collecting back. It is an integer, float, double character, boolean string. What data are you collecting back and what data is it setting? If you have this mismatch, then your Java will throw an error saying that, okay, there's a mismatch. And this is like compilation error, so it will not even let you compile the code. It will throw you like full error, and then you have to like fix that first. So if something is getting returned, you have to make sure you catch it. So catching it is nothing but either use system.out.println to maybe display or use some variable to store the value. So you have to catch it. If you do not mention this, like let's say if I did not mention int of add result equals to c1.add, if I do not mention this int add equals to, then I'll start getting an error saying that, okay, this method is returning a value and you're not storing it anywhere. So do store it. And that's about methods. We will study different concepts of method, which is like what is method overriding, method overloading, and so on, like in future. But the basic concepts of method is like it helps you do operations or like whatever steps which you write in it gets executed whenever it is called. It can take arguments, various and multiple arguments. It has a return type. Now I come back to the code. There was one code here which I thought I'll explain later, but looks like I can explain it now. Okay, so here I have created a method with the return type of Boolean. It has the name as ID checker. It comes in, it checks if my ID is greater than 1. If it is, then it will return true, or else it is going to return false. That's it. So this is one of the method which I have. And after creating this variable, this first object, I'm going to check, if on what is my value. So I'm giving ID as 2, and hence like since ID is 2, I should get output as like true. So we'll see if we get it. So here after creating an object, then in next line I have to mention like what is the value which I'm getting back. So which is Boolean ID check value and s1 dot ID checker. So s1 dot ID checker is nothing but it is going to go to this line number 18 and start executing this code. Here it will check object's ID is greater than 1 or not. If it is 1, then you can see here it says return true. Now true is of what type? It's of Boolean type. So Boolean value will be returned. If I go back to my code, then since I am getting a return value, let's suppose that I do not have this. I'll start getting an error. And what the error is? System delete this token. So okay. Hmm. This one dot ID checker. Surprisingly, there is no errors. Control C copy. I thought that there'll be an error. It looks like there's no error, so it works fine without even mentioning ID checker result is true. Okay, so yeah, there's no error. I thought like there would be an error. Maybe I was getting it earlier, but now not anymore. So earlier we had to mention like, what is the type of data type which we are going to use in order to receive the values back from this. And here in the main code, we had to collect it. But today when I see that, I do not see that error, which is like if I remove the Boolean and ID check and then just call this, it works fine. So it's like the returned value, it's just like lost in this case. Like if you do not mention this, you're not getting any error. I thought there would be an error, but no, there's no error. It is just that the value will be like lost. That's it. Uh, and yeah, so that's all about like methods. Next is constructor. So for constructor, I've already told you the important topics or important points which I have, uh, and how they are different from each other. The very first thing is method has um, return type and constructor does not. Method can be executed as many number of times as you want. You just have to say s1 dot and like object name dot method name, and you can call it like hundred and thousands and like million number of times. But constructor can only be executed while creating an object. That's it. Anytime else, you cannot like call it. Both constructor and methods, they accept arguments. Arguments are nothing but the values which you see here. The only difference is constructor will be used when your object is being created, and methods are called after your object is created. So that's one more difference. Um, and since like constructor does not have any return type, it also means that you cannot pass value from constructor to your main code, you know. But whereas method, it's very flexible. It can pass some values or it cannot pass some values. So if it is void, that means it's not passing any values. If it has some return types, then it's passing some values. So those are like some very important comparison between these two methods, or like between these two concepts of constructor and methods. You have to like remember it, and we'll be using some of the concepts even in the course. So that time it will be like handy for you. And also for constructor, if you create a constructor, then the default constructor is like no longer valid, and hence like you have to make sure that you add default constructor manually. That's like a good practice. Okay, I think that's everything from this slide. I have explained all the concepts. You can go through these topics and let me know if you have any question, or like if you need any clarification on any of these topics. Please feel free, do not hesitate, because these are some important topics which you should know. Any questions on constructor?
No questions. Clear. No question.
Okay, so we are done with this. Let's take like a 10 minutes break and then go to the next topic, which is overloading this static variable and static methods. This is again very important topic, but we need our clear head before we start this. This is like extension of methods now. Uh, yeah, this is extension of methods. So you'll know more about methods after this topics are completed. Okay, so current time is 10:04. Let's meet at 10:15.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Yes. So overloading concept, let's start with this. Method overloading. Come back to the program. Overloading. Okay. So basic Java is done. All the all the concept here is complete. Now we'll go to the next package from here, which is called Advanced Java Concept. And here we will study about method overloading, static, and this. So whatever we are going to study today, in this uh, in this PDF, those concepts are all present, or like the code for those concepts are present in this advanced Java concept package. So you can refer to them here. Okay, you know what? Let me just create this so that we work on it. So I have a class called operations, and here I'm going to create some methods. So now method overloading. What does method overloading means? So it's a concept where uh, we try to use same method name but just pass like different types of arguments to it. So instead of having different method names all the time for different types of parameters. So one of the concept which I'll explain here is, let's say we are creating a calculator and we have a program to add two numbers, or add maybe three numbers, or add maybe four numbers, or add like different types of number and so on. So these are like some different types of operations which we have. And since the base of all these operations are like it's doing an addition operation, right? So add is the operation. So when we try to name a method, we'll try to name it around what operation it does. So add is the operation. And if I create, 100, let's say there, I have to create like five different types of add operation. So if I create like add one, add two, add three, add four, add five, method, it is just very confusing for like if you're creating the code, it is very easy for you to know, okay, add one is for two integer values, add two is for one integer and one float, add three is for going to add like three variables and so on. But like if a new team member comes into the team and they want to like know or work on the program which you're running, then this add function, they'll see five add functionalities with add one, add two, add three, add four, add five methods. They will get confused on like what is what. And these are like very easy example, as in they just have one line of code. But in a project, you'll have like maybe like 20, 30, 40, 50 lines of code. And if it is confusing, or like if a developer has to go through all those code, it will just be like time consuming and waste of resources. So in order to like get rid of those issues, this like people who are developing Java, they came or like they incorporate the ideology of using method overriding, um method overloading. And when we say method overloading, it just means that I'm going to use the same method name, because the operation which we do in these methods are almost same. So we're going to use the same method name. Now, what will tell the difference of what how different is one method from the other is on the type of arguments and the number of arguments which we'll be using. So let's start with the very basic. So we'll say void um, add, and here initially I'll say int a and int B. So as the name suggests, I'm going to add two things, and what am I doing? Should I display or should I return? Oh, return. Let me change it to int and return A plus B. So what it will do, it will just take the value of A, B, and add and return it. Okay, so this is one method. Now I want to add one int, and next one would be float. If I want to add this, but add int A and float B, but return main is the addition of integer and float will always be floating type, and hence like if we want integer type we have to explicitly convert it, but for me it's fine for now. I'll just make it to like float, and then I'll say int add one more method, which is, let's say if I want to add int A, int B, int C, and then I'll say return A plus B plus C. Okay, so this is like third method. Now let me go back to my methods operation. Keep on adding more methods to this. So I have to create an object. Can someone tell me how to create an object for operations? Syntax. Just general object. How do
The
you create an object of?
class name, object name,
Okay, so what should I type?
operations,
Why are you so hesitating to say that?
confused.
No, it's just you're creating a object of a class. So
Uh,
operations,
Object name
so let's say O1.
is equal to new operations.
Okay. And since we do not have any
Yeah.
constructor going on, we can keep it empty. So this is like object creation. You have to be like super confident in creating an object now. So object is created. Now I have to use that. So if I say object one dot, you can see that I have created methods. Now they all have same name. They all are called add. So it is possible, but just different types. So different numbers of argument, different types of argument, right? So here they have same number, but it is of different type. So what we want to learn or what we want to see here when we execute this code is that when I pass some values, so let's say now if I say o1 dot add and if I'm saying 5 comma 3, right? So can someone tell me what this 5 and 3 are, like what data types these things are? 5 and 3.
Integer.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So
In,
this one is integer integer type of data. Next one is o1 dot add, and here I'll say 6 comma 5.5 float. So as the as it says here that this is of floating type value and this is integer. So integer and float. Third one, o1 dot add, and here I'll say 2 comma 5 comma 6. Okay, three values. Three integer. Um, since all these have return type, you know what? I'll include this in system.out.println so that I can see the output of this addition. So it will add these numbers, right? So what I'll do is I'm printing out these values. And now I'll run this code. And you can see that when I ran the code, it has successfully found 5 plus 5 comma 3. It has added those two numbers, displayed 8. Then here it successfully added these two numbers, display 11.5 and here 13. So what overloading is, like I didn't have to tell Java specifically. I didn't tell Java to, okay, I'm giving o1 dot add and then passing value 6 and 5.5 float. And I didn't tell explicitly to go and look into this method, right? I didn't do it. The Java did it by itself. And Java knows, okay? Java knows that there are like multiple add methods present here, but which one Java has to pick up is the same, depending on the type of data it has. It will try to assign it to one of the method where the data type matches, and it will use that. So when we pass two integer, it came here to line number 6 and executed this one. When we passed 5 and 6 and 5.5, it successfully came to this method and executed this. When we passed three different types of or like three parameters, it came to this line number 14 and executed this. And like this is like method overloading. So you're overloading the same method with different type of arguments and different number of arguments. So these two are like key concept or like um, key element in overloading, which is like method name will be same, but either the number of arguments or number of values will be different, or type of these values would be different. Now you could be like, Shrikant, what if we have two method with same name, same type of data? Then you will get an error. You'll say that there is a duplicate method, with the same type of data type. So you cannot have same type of data. Like, so add method, and then there is a like two integer data which you're trying to input. Even though you have like different steps inside, right? I can have like, instead of return, I can have like return a plus b plus 100. Like, even if I have different steps inside, doesn't matter, it will always result in an error. Why? Because we have two method of same name, same argument, and hence like that is not allowed in Java. So only thing which is allowed is you can have same method name, just the number of arguments or the type of argument has to be like different, and your Java will automatically choose the method which it wants to run, or like the Java will automatically choose what type of data. Based on the type of data which you are passing, Java will automatically choose the methods and execute that method. So that is concept of method overloading. Yes. Jyoti.
Can we have different method name with the same arguments, like int subtract, int a, comma int b?
Yes,
Is
but
that allowed?
yeah, but that is like general method, right? That does not have concept of overloading. That is like just general uh methods. You can have any name, right? Like I can also create a method called your name, and it's going to be fine. So if you have same name, that then the concept of overloading comes in. If you have different name, that's like just generic. You can have as many methods as you want. That's like no, I mean they are all different in that aspect. So if you
Right.
want to call this subtract or chaitra, you have to like explicitly call them, and then it will be like selected. Now, if I do this part where I have multiple method, then I have to change at least one of the things, which is, let's say, float B, then I have to again mention float here. So this one again is method overloading, where the method name is same, but and number of arguments are also same, but the argument types are different. So this is method overloading. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'll close this. So basic concept of method overloading is done. We'll now see the example which I have here. This one has like uh, multiple methods. So one is this one here is int add, adds two value. Here it adds three values. Here it adds two double value. Here it adds three double values. Then int and double, double and int. And from my main method, I will call all of those. So I've started it here. I'm saying method overloading one. So creating an object for method overloading p1 and calling that object as example. And then from that point onwards, I'm creating or calling example dot add, passing the values. If I execute this, you can see successfully all the system.out.println is executed with all different types of methods with the same name, just different arguments and different values has been executed successfully without any problem. Okay. Uh, any questions on overloading? If not, then we'll move to the next topic.
Clear.
Perfect. Next is and it also helps in saving memory, saving time. Can be done in two types. I've said those of everything. Perfect. Oh, then yeah, this is again an interview question which says, can we overload the main method? As in like, can we have multiple main methods? So main method is what? Like public static void main, right? So here the question is, can we overload this main method? Answer is yes. We can overload this main method, or we can overload the main method, not exactly this one. So let's see the example of that. This is very tricky question, but it is possible uh, with the concept of overloading. So let me go back to this. Main is here. Let me uncomment this two part. Okay. So I have this main overloading main method overloading main, right? This is my class. Here I have three main methods. So you can see main as one. Then you can see main as string args. And then you can see again public static void main string args. Okay. So there are like three main methods which I have created in this overloading main class. When I execute my program, let's say if I execute this program, it has to first, um, by default, as I said even earlier, I've said this, that when I execute any program in Java, the very first thing what compiler or executing machine or JVM, anything which is going to look for is public static void main and string with this brackets and args. So this line here 11 is something which your JVM will always look into. So all your instructions has to be present in it. So even if you try to like override this, right? Even if you have main method, then like it is always going to look for string args as the first method to execute. So if you do not have this, then your program will not even execute. So this line here, line number 13, will always be executed first. And yes, you can create various methods with the same name as main, and you can like have different types of parameters present in them, so that this becomes like overloading concept, right? However, in order to execute the other two mains, you have to create an object of this class and execute them. Or like if you're executing it here, it should be fine. But no, I think you have to create an object all the time. So let me see main method. Oh, main method execution is here. So this is main method overloading has two extra methods called void main and then void main string args. And it also has like static void main and it has this main which we have seen in our previous program and how this creates an object of this class and then works on it, right? So this is one code, but then for just executing the main part, as in like um like while executing this thing here, main, and I mean, or finding the difference between these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm creating a new class, and here I'm saying public static void main. Uh, okay, I think, sorry for confusion. I don't want to run this here. I think I can just explain this concept with the help of this page here or this file here. Let me remove this from here completely. This is not even required here. I think someone asked me a question on like what would happen if I run this here. So maybe that's why I added that line here, but this is the code. So we have three mains here, like public static void main, then public static void main with empty, as in nothing inside, and then string args here. And when I execute this program, you can see the very first thing which my Java will execute is this main here, public static void main string args. So this string square bracket, yeah, square bracket open and close. So this is the line which has to be present and that will be executed first. After I get into this, then I can execute any methods which I want to. So if I call main without passing anything, it will just execute this part. If I call main with string args, and then since I'm saying string, so that means I'm going to pass a string when I call this main method. So if I call main and then pass Shrikant, it will successfully call this method. So here when I run this program, it executes this first, which says I'm in main with string args. Let me refresh this and make it this. Here it says I'm in main with string args. Then I'm executing main method. So it comes to this part and here says I'm in main now. And it says ADEEXP. Uh, from here, the control goes back to line number 8. And in line number 8, I'm running this part here. So here says I'm with Shrikant. So this displays I'm in Shrikant. And then from here, I can again execute the main, which is this one here. Uh, anyways, the concept is that you can have main method overloaded successfully, but you should just know that this exact thing or this method with string as args with open bracket and close will be something which your Java will look for while executing the code. And rest of the methods, you can call it as you please in your code. So, and like, so main method, as you can see, the concept of overloading is applicable here because you can see there are multiple main methods with different argument types and different number of arguments. So here there is no argument, here there is string arguments, here is string array arguments. So all these three are different. Okay, so yeah, that's again an interview question. Sometimes I think I was giving interview for BMO once and they asked me this question. And to be honest, that time I didn't know. I thought it is not possible. But then later on, when I studied more about this concept, I was like, yes, it is really possible. But the concept of string arcs was not very, at that point, I didn't know this properly. So couldn't answer it that day, but it kept with. I mean, it stuck with me since then. This question, and hence, like this was included in the course as well. Okay. Uh, Next is this keyword. Okay, so let's get into this keyword. So for this uh, keywords concept, you can refer to these two programs here. One is this key main, and another one is this keyword. These two are the programs which we'll be referring to. Uh, so the first program is this keyword, which is the main class, not main class, which is the class which has the blueprint. So I'm creating a class with variable a and b, two integer variable, and then I'm doing some operation. Okay. Um, Before getting into this concept, first thing which we should know is why why do we know why do we even learn this concept, right? So this is a concept in Java. It is also a concept in every other programming language. So wherever you're using OOPS concept, which is object oriented programming concept, this is something which is present in all programming languages as well. Now, why do we need this? Okay. I think I can directly explain here. It's not very difficult. I have a program where I have a method called add, and here I'm taking two variables called int a and int b. Um, what if I can quickly change something here, so that will be easy. Name is okay. So I have two variables in this class. I'm creating a new class called batch5 exp. I have two variables called int a and b. I want to add this, so I'll add a method called int add, and here I'll say int a1 comma int b1, right? And here I'll say a equals to a1 and b equals to b1. Okay, and then sum equals to a1. Sorry, sum equals to a plus b, and finally return sum. It's new variable we have to assign like type. Okay, perfect. So this is my code, very easy. And finally, I will create main method also. So if I want to create an object of the met the class which I just created, so I'll say batch by exp, give it a class name, give it an object name called o1 equals to new of batch batch 5. Since we do not have any constructor on, I have to keep it empty. So this create my value. So now I can, with the help of reference variable assignment, I'm going to assign two values, which is o1 comma 5 Oh, actually, I do not even need it because I'm using the method. So I'll say O1 dot add, and here I'll say pass the value as 5 comma 5. And since it's returns some value, I'll use system dot out dot print ln to display the result of some. Okay, this is like a very basic program which we have which we have written like multiple number of times. When I execute this code, I can see the output as 10. Now, currently we have passed the value of 5 and 5 that comes to this line. It assigns the value of A1 to be 5 and B1 to be 5 and works completely fine, right? Uh, A1 to be 5, B1 to be 5. Oops, where did that go? Okay, A1 to be 5, B1 to be 5. So here it takes this value of A1, puts it in A, takes the value of B1, puts it in B, finds the sum, returns the sum. Okay, everything is all good. Now, the concept of this comes in place when we have same name in the in my methods variable as my class variable name. So if these two names are same, right? If these two names are same, so my class has two variables called int a and b. My method also has two variables and they also have the same name as a and b. So now when we say a equals to a, there's a confusion. Like, and you can see here when the assignment to this variable has no effect. As in like Java does not know what this a means and what this a means. In our head, we think of it as like this a is this one and this a is this one. So, but like Java is not like as smart as we think. So if we write it in this format, Java will not know, like, and it's not possible for you to always add one number after you're getting some values from a different file. Why? Because right now we are just working with two variables, so we just have two variables. But in future, when you're, let's say, trying to get data from an Excel file or from database, so database has like so many columns and has like so many values. So if you start renaming them all, if you start renaming all those values, there'll be like hundreds and hundreds of um, values which will be getting from one part of the code, and you have to pass it to the another part of the code. So if you keep on renaming them, then it is very difficult for you to keep in track. So in order to overcome those issues, there's a concept which is this keyword. So when you write this keyword, right, it means that you're referring to the object variable of the class, right? So if I say this dot b, this dot a, so this dot a is equivalent to the value of this variable, so the object variable here, so a. And when I say this dot b, then again it represents this one here. So with the help of this keyword, you can see all my error is gone. So I'm getting the value in same, like, same format as a and b. Earlier without this keyword, I was getting an error or like warning as in like this is of no effect, which means like Java thinks this value of a is either this one or this one. Like it could think maybe this one. So it thinks that it is not doing any work. But if you want your object variable to be assigned, then you have to give this dot. So once you write this dot keyword, that then it just starts to mean that this, or like this is to give a clarity that this variable here is my object variable. This variable here is my method variable. So this is just to mm, differentiate between them. And yeah, that's the concept. So now if I run the code, you can see it runs completely fine. So this keyword represents to the object variable of the current object. So O1. So let's say if I create one more object called O2, pass like 6 and 6. Now, when line number 10 gets executed, an object will be created with the label as O2. The value of A and B is initially dumb or like a garbage value. And when it comes to this line, O2.add, it goes to object 2, takes the value of, assigns the value of A from here. So we will get 6. So it will assign the value of 6 and 6 here and then do the work for you, right? So that is concept. However, you do not need this if you have different variable names. So let's say if I have A and A1 and B1 here, then this concept is not even required. It is optional. It is not like required. So why is this not required? Because my Java is not confused. Now my Java knows that this A is nothing but my uh, value here and this B is nothing but my value here. So if there is no confusion, you do not need the keyword. You need that keyword only when there is a confusion. So the confusion would occur if your class variable name is, or like object variable name is equivalent to your methods variable name. Okay. Any questions around this keyword? We're good. Perfect. Is my explanation so good, or you guys do not have any question?
Explanation is good, just that we have to go through it again. Right
Okay.
now, like I don't have any doubt
Okay, perfect. I
because
hope.
explanation is clear.
Okay, perfect. Then fine. Sometimes I'm like, are you guys following me or not? And so on. Okay, perfect. So if you guys are following, I'm good. And again, like when you guys go through the video, when you try to understand the concept again on your own time, and if you find that there is some issues in understanding any concept, please do let me know. And in the next class, we'll try to like clear those questions.
Okay.
Mhm. The next is static. You see that in the code, they have explained something, which is they executed the code without, so this keyword, save. I want to show the same thing to you. So if I send value of 6, 5, and here I'm just keeping it as A, B, and then I'm printing it out, return B. Int add, so return A plus B. And run this code. 6, 5 new is equals to, okay, run this code. So here I'm running the code. So, the value of this A and B, when we do not write the keyword called this, right? This is just to show, I'm running this program just to show that if you do not write this keyword, then this variables of your object does not get like initialized. this A and B is considered as this value of A, and this B value is considered as this value of B. So your these variables are not initialized. And how do I know that? Like, so I have this code where I'm creating an object. Next is calling this add method. Finally, I'm trying to display the value of A and B of the object. So like the value of these two guys here. So when I try to display it, I'm getting the value of them as 0 because I did not use this keyword here yet, right? So this A and B is nothing but Java thinks them as same as these two variable. Okay, but if I have the keyword, so let me comment this and then put this part. So if I have some will not change because here it is taking the A and B value here, right? So if I return A plus B, then it's just adding these two values and returning it to us. But in this time, when we say this dot A equals to A and B, you will see the values will be different in this 0, 0. So if I go back to this, run this code, you can see the new value is 11 and value of A is 6, value of B is 5. So this like kind of gives you an clarity that these variables were updated, as in like these variables were updated with the new value when this keyword was used. Okay, so this is like the explanation. Next is static. Okay, so static is like a concept which we have to first know on what is static and when do we use that. So static is nothing but, let's say you're working on you're working in a project where there are few you know variables or methods which does not change, right? Which does not change, as in like which has some constant value, and it does not change, so it remains constant. So if you try to create an object around that, um, then you can keep it static, meaning that in the memory it will just take one space. So let me explain this with the help of an example, and then we'll see what it exactly means. So, okay. Employee class has some variables called ID, name, company, department. Okay. So if I'm working in a company, I mean, if we are trying to store all the employee information in a company, we can see that ID will be different for all, name will be different for all, department could be different or same for all. But company is a field which will remain same for all because everyone in this employee table are from the same company, let's say. That's the scenario which we are seeing currently. So everyone from this company, uh, all the employees uh, working for this company will have same information uh, in company variable. So instead of, so like let's say if I create like 100 employee record, right? So O1, O2, O3, O4, or like E1, E2, E3, E4. Um, so all these are like objects which we use to create. So like let's say if I've created and so on up till E100, 100 employees. And then I'll be passing all this information, right? So ID, name, company, department, and so on. So if you see company is same for all these 100 employees, but I would have saved it in 100 different location, right? Because every time I create an object, I will store ID, name, company, and department value, right? That's true. That's what we have learned up until now. But whenever we create an object, it will just take it will just take these three or four variables and create a space in in memory. And later on, we can either assign some values to it with the help of reference variable constructor or with the help of methods. Like anything is fine. But when you create an object, the very first thing it will do is it will take some memory away from you to create these variables based on the type they have. So like int, string, string, string. So based on the type, it will take some memory in your hard drive. So if there are 100 employees, it will take 100 space. So 100 into, let's say each one is like um, 30 or like 100 bytes. So it takes like 100 bytes into 100 employees. So all this memory will be holding like same data. So why do we even need like to like if there is some variables or like some yeah, variable which is having storing same value, why do we have to write 100 times? We can make it, or we can take it to a common location, and for all these employees we can say that, for company, instead of creating your own variable, instead of creating your own space and then noting it down, you know what, you all can refer from one common place, right? So if they all refer this company field from one common space, so the memory of 100 into 100 byte will be reduced to 1 to just 100 bytes. So instead of 100 users, 100 bytes, it will just reduce to 1 into 100 bytes. So it will just take 100 bytes to store the company information. But in order to do that, how do we do this? How do we make company as a central element where all the employees can refer to this? So we have to use a word called static. So once we make something static, it will remain same, or like all the objects can access this variable, right? And like use it. And hence like static came into picture where you can just use the value of it. Okay. Now there are some rules of creating static. So there are, your variable could be static, or your method could be static. Okay. So now we'll see what is static variable, what is static method, and what each one of them do. But the basic requirement for static came into place or came into existence just to save the memory for you. As in, like, if some data which is repeated among all the objects, we will take it out, make it static so that it's accessible for everyone everywhere. Okay. So that's the concept. Now coming back to explanation. So static keyword is in Java used for memory management mainly. We can apply Java static keyword with variables and methods. So two things can be static. One is variable and the other one is method. In our example, we saw variable as the example where we took one of the variables and made it common, which is like company name for all the 100 employees. Uh, so now the next one would be method as well, but first we'll finish the execution of variable and then we'll move to method. So here also you can see the example is that there are employees and they are saying that they are saying that department number is 10 for all. So this is like a common field or some field which is going to be common for all the objects which we are creating. So instead of creating multiple like instead of creating this field multiple times, I'll just create it once. Like you can see that 1, 2, 3, everyone is getting department number equals to 10 from a central space. Just like how I explained. Okay, so now how do we execute this, or how do we even create these things? So I'll go to the program. There's static keyword. So we'll start with program 1 or 2. Which one should I start with? This one has static int. main. Okay, this will tell me what I start with. Accessing static key directly using the class name. How about this one? Okay, me too. So there's like 4 programs here in total. One is static keyword P1. So this is my class. And for this, the main method is in static keyword P1 main. Similarly, there's another program called static keyword P2, and that has a static main method too. So you can use this combination and this combination together. We'll start with the static keyword program 2, and then we'll move to program 1. Okay, so here I'm doing the same thing what we had it in the example, which is I'm creating a class called static keyword P2, and that is equivalent to, like, it is storing 3 information called int employee number, string name, and you can see here department number is going to be same. So department number is 2, and I'm calling it as static. So I'm explicitly mentioning that, okay, this field is going to be static for me. So once a field is marked static, it means it is going to store it. This value will be stored separately. So when my object is created for static keyword P2, if let's say if I'm creating an object called E1, then that will just have these 2 variables. It will not have this. Why? Because this is present in a common space. My object will not have this stored. This is going to be present in some common space where all the objects will have access to. Um, and we so whenever we create an object, that will be this line number 6 will be excluded from it. Okay, now, so this is variable, how to mark a variable static. Now, how to mark a method static. So to mark a method static, you have to say static as a keyword, followed by the type of or the return type, and then increment, I mean then it is your method name. So when you have a method as static, it means that to call this method, you do not have to create an object. You can directly call this method. So when do we use this type of method? Which is like if you have some flags which you want to like change, uh, so you do not have to like create an object in order to update some values. You can directly access this method and update the values. Okay. Um, so I have this variable as static, this method as static. Then I'm creating a method to assign this employee number and name with some values which I'll pass. And then I'll display the value of everything here. Okay, very simple code, nothing complicated here. I have to, wow, there's so many things here. So let me comment all of this and start with the very basic. So first thing first, I'll try to create an object of this static keyword P2, and then I will assign value of 1 and Shrikant and display the values. That's it. That's the starting thing which I'm going to do. And in display, you can see I'm displaying employee number, employee name, and department number. The department number is 2. Okay. I'll run this code and I can see that employee number is 1, employee name is Shrikant, and department number is 2. Perfect. Nothing changed here. Now let me take another code, which is like I'm creating one more object, I mean, called employee2. And while creating that, I'm going to assign some value of, I'm creating the object 2 for 2 and Kajal. And I'll run the code. Oh, before running the code, I'll display the value of, I'll display both the values, or let me display value 2. So employee 1 is here. I'll display employee 2 values. And you can see that employee 2 is also displayed. Employee 2 is based on this. So 2 Kajal, and department is 2 again. So department remains the same, right? Because department we have made static and assigned it a value already. Okay. Now, what will happen if I, how can I change the value of this department number, right? So this department number is there. I want to change the value of this department number. How do I change it? So static variable and static method, as I said, you do not want to, or like you do not have to create an object to access these values, because these are like out of it. So to access these variables or these methods, you can use the class name. So if I want to update value of this department number, I do not have to create an object to do that. I have to use the class name. So static keyword p2 dot department number, and I can assign it a value. So you can see here this line number 18. So I'm saying static keyword p2 dot department number equals to 5. So after this line gets executed, you can see that employee employee 1 and 2 employee 2 will display department number as 5, or up until now it's displaying value as like 2, right? So once I run this, it will start to display it as 5. So you can see earlier it was 2, and then after I have set it to 5, now it displays as department number is 5, department number is 5 for both. Okay, so for the thing which we have to notice is we change the value of department number with the help of class name and not the object names, right? So that is something which you have to note. Next is, how do we access methods? So how we had static variable. Similarly, we have method called static method, and this has some operation. And here I'm saying increment the department number from whatever the value it is to plus plus. So this means that it is going to increment the value of department number from whatever it is to a new value, which is from 2 plus 1, it will become 3 for us. But since we have changed the value of department number to 5, when I increment it, it will become 5 plus 1, which is equivalent to 6. And after that, I'll display these two values. So again, to access this method, I had to use the class name dot method name and not object name and method name. I have to use like class name and method name, and then if I run the code, you can see that value after changing is 6 and 6. Okay. So this is a common method which is present, and I have to use the class name to access this method. And in my first code, which is static keyword p1 and static keyword p1 main, you can see that I'm not even going to create an object, and this will help me. So I've created a class called static int count, and it has a variable int a. It has increment method, which is again of static and has count plus plus. So you can see this count and this increment are both static in nature, and in order to uh, get the value of count or execute this increment or method, I do not have to create an object. So here you cannot see any object creation, right? There's no object created here. So in order to access this, I have to just use class name dot count or class name dot method name, and it will run successfully. So you can see that it says initial count, tries to get the value of count, it's 0. It runs the increment method and then gets the count afterwards. It says 1, and then I'm resetting it. So when I say reset, I'm assigning count equals to 0. So this is again a method, static method. So which means I have to just use class name dot reset. So static method, the very first thing to remember is how do you access it? First is, what is static method? It's like a common memory. Second is, how do we access it? With the help of class name. What are the things which can be static? Your variable and your method. So both can be static. And yeah, that's it. So do you have any questions on static? Okay. So by that, we finish this slides as well. Move to the next topic, which is, oh, now assignment number 2 and 3 will be unlocked, which will be due by next week. Next concept is inheritance. Java overriding, super keyword, final keyword. Once we finish this, then most of the Java advanced concepts will be done. Then we have collections left. So we have only few, maybe couple of classes left for, or like 3 classes left for Java, and then we'll move to Selenium. Okay, so next topic is inheritance. Uh, I'll give 5 minutes break before we start the new concept, so you can relax until 11:35, and then we'll start these concepts. Okay.
Okay.
Hello, welcome back, guys. Oh shit. Just give me one second. Back.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Recording is in progress. Okay, perfect. So now the other topic, which is again very important and really required, which is Java inheritance. Um, it's also called polymorphism, where we kind of create a class. I mean, we'll be having a lot of classes. So instead of um, rewriting another class, if we want to just add few functionalities, we can extend a class, we can reuse a class, we can reuse some methods, and so on. So will inheritance is nothing but around those concepts. So we'll study inheritance first, then we'll see what method overriding is, what is super keyword, what is final keyword. So let's start with polymorphism, which is inheritance. Okay. Advanced concept, inheritance. So all the inheritance related code will be present in this inheritance package. Um, so inheritance, as you see, it's big. We have a lot of concepts, starting with starting with class can be extended, um, and interfaces will be the next topic, I guess, after this. So yeah, that is next topic. So I do not have to care about interfaces now. To paint, file, new. Okay. So inheritance means like it's as the word inheritance is like you have a parent class. You have a parent class, and parent class would have some of the definitions as in like some methods. Method 1, method 2, method 3, and so on. So parent class can have some methods and some characteristics. Okay. Inheritance means like you can instead of let's say that um let's say that I want to create another class which where I need these methods plus few more methods uh, of like different with something different. So I need these method plus extra method. So in those cases, like uh, the scenario where you want to copy the same methods plus add more, in those scenarios you would have some methods written like twice and you do not want that. So to eliminate that part where it's like class 1 has method 1, method 2, method 3, and you want to write class 2 which has same method 1, method 2, method 3, method 4, 5, and 6, and so on, right? So instead of writing this method 1, 2, 3 like two times, right? We have a concept of inheritance, which says that in my parent class, I can have some methods, right? I can create a child class. I can create a child class which extends from my parent class. So extends from parent class. And when I do this, right, when Java executes this child class, or like when we create an object of this child class or this parent class, sorry, when we create an object of this child class, right, my Java will give me all the methods I have here plus all the methods which I have here. So child will inherit all the properties from the parent class. So whatever parent class has, child will inherit everything. Plus child can have its own characteristics, as in like extra methods if it wants. Right. So the inheritance concept is like, why do we have this concept? So that we can reuse the same methods uh, and like reuse them or even change them. So like method one here says add 2 plus 2. I can say that, you know what, method one, I do not want 2 plus 2. I want to make it 3 plus 2. Even that is possible. That is method overriding. I'm going to change whatever was in my parent class. So, you know, and then I want to use same method as method 2 and 3. So I will have same method as method 2 and 3 here, or like for child class. So that way we kind of utilize whatever we have written. So method 2 and 3 or method 1, 2 and 3, whatever we have written earlier will remain the same. And we can add extra characteristics if I want in my child class. If we didn't have this inheritance concept, uh, then we would have to write the same methods multiple number of times in each and every class. That would make our programs like way, way, way bigger, and we do not want that. So we have to try and ease our work as much as possible, which is like try to reuse the same code as many number of times as possible, and hence polymorphism or inheritance works uh, in our favor and helps us in doing that, where we write one part of the code in one class, one method, and reuse that part with concepts like inheritance or polymorphism. Now we'll see how to create a parent class. How do we do this parent and child class thing? What are different types of inheritance we have in Java with the help of example? Okay, so in object-oriented programming, computer programs are designed in such a way where everything is an object that interacts with one another. Inheritance is one such concept where the properties of one class can be inherited by another. Uh, Yeah, so is the object-oriented programming is like Java, what we are studying, where here we can we can say that we can create an object and interact, one object can interact with another object and so on. And then comes the inheritance where we have two classes, one is parent class, one is child. Child class can inherit properties from parent class. Why this? This helps in reusing the code, establish a relation between different classes. That's what it's used for. In Java, there are two types of class, parent class. Sometimes it can be called super or base class as well. And then there is child class. Sometimes it's also called as subclass or derived class. But all these are different names, but it means one thing, which is it's going to have all the characteristic of parent class plus its own characteristic if it has. A class which inherits the property is known as child class, whereas a class whose properties are inherited is known as parent class. So, like as the line clarifies, the parent class is something uh, which is on the top, and child class is something which inherits from parent. So there is a keyword which you have to use while creating a child class in order for the child class to inherit from parent, right? Or else how will Java know that it is going to use parent class or like it's an extension of parent class? So we'll see how we write the code for that. So now there are four types of inheritance. One is single level inheritance. Single level means there's one parent and one child. Child inherits from parent. Multi-level inheritance means there's a parent, then there's a child, and then the child has a child. So it's like child, parent, and grandparent kind of a thing. So that is multi-level. Then comes hierarchical. It's better if I show it here. So there's a single. So there's a child class extending from parent. Multi-level, you can see that there are three levels. So class A is the, like in this case, it will be like super, I mean, grandparent, then parent, and child. Hierarchical means there's one parent and two child. So it is possible that there are two childs accessing uh, one parent's information. That's completely possible. And third one is multiple. In multiple, one class, one child has properties of two parents. This is not possible in Java with the help of Java itself. I mean, with the help of classes, but with the help of interface, we can achieve this result. And I'll show how it's possible. So interface we would learn interface in like maybe next class or next to next class. So we'll study that time. So let's start with the very basics because I don't think so we have complete time to finish inheritance today. So we'll start with the basics as in like how uh, single level inheritance work. So for that, for inheritance, I would need Java teaching guide because this was the program. I'll be sharing this Java teaching guide as well. So you will know which code is present where. Uh, Not completely, but from this point, like inheritance part at least, because this has like a lot of class files, and it's easy to be lost with the help of video. So when I share this file, it will be like useful for you. The next is code animal. Let me close this. Oh, single inheritance. I would have mentioned is single inheritance and clock. Okay. I'll create all the three. I mean, I'll create the parent class. So I'll call it as base class. Um, I'll finish it. And what am I doing here is I'm going to create a base class and call it as base class. Okay. And what it represents is, let's say the base class talks about animal species. So there are some methods which will be common between all animals. So let's say void, they all eat something. So eat is something which is present in void. Sleep is something which is common in all animals, and let's say hunting. Let's say I have these three methods as my parent. So these are some characteristic of animal class. Okay. So base class is for animals, and I'll have void eat. Then void sleep, and next one called eat. Okay. So I have three class which I have. Let me write this system or dot print 5, 8. Okay, so these are some characteristic of base class, and here I'll just call it as animal. Just basic. This is like generic. So now, so this is my base. Now what I want to do is next I have to create a class, and this time I'll create a specific animal class. So let's say dog. I'll say single level batch file. Okay. So I'm saying it as dog single level batch 5 as the class name. And here you see superclass. I have to I have to add a superclass because now I'm saying my dog class is coming from animal class. So like I want all the characteristic of animals to be present in this class. So in order to do that, I have to either I can write it into my file, but Java has a way of adding it, which is like you come to this place and then you type so what is my class name? Animal let me check what it was. What was it? Animal single inheritance, right? So animal single inheritance. So in my superclass, I'll mention what is the superclass for this new class which I'm creating. Once I do that, I can click on finish. So in superclass part, go to browse, type the file name or the class name which you want to add it. Click on finish. And you can see that here it says public class doc single level batch 5 is my new class name. And then you see the keyword called extends, and then you see animal single inheritance. So which means that you're trying to extend from, oh, I think I should have extended from base class. So my bad. Let me refactor it. I do not have to do this. I can just write base. So instead of like, I created this base class just for us. So base class, and then I'm saying public class doc single level batch 5 extends base class. Okay. So now I will add more stuff. So here dogs, they make a sound called bark. So let's say dogs bark. There are some other um one is given for let's say it is of or let's say anything. I'm just writing some. Okay, so now I have class called dog single level batch. It extends the base class and then it has its own method called bark and pet. Now I have to create a class called main class. Now, in order to create an object and everything remains the same, right? So let me create an object now. So main method say public static void main. Now I have two classes here. One is base class, one is dog single level batch 5 class, which is extending from base class. So if I create an object of this, let me create an object. So I'm using the child class and call it like C1 equals to new of this class. Now when I do C1 dot, this changes everything for us. You can see that with the help of C1 or like child, I have only two methods, right? Bark and child has what? Bark and pet. But since this one is the child class or base class, with the help of child class like C1, I can access all the methods from child class and all the methods from the parent class as well. So if I write C1 and then dot, you can see what are the methods which I have access to. I have access to sleep, pet, hunt, eat, walk. So you see I have access to all the 5 methods which I want. So let me first try to see if c1 dot walk, then c1 dot pet, c1 dot eat, c1 dot sleep, c1 dot hunt. Oops. If I run this code, you can see that dogs bark, friendly pet, eat, sleep, hunt. Right? I can access to, if I create an object of this class, I should have just got these two methods, right? But since I'm extending from base class, you can see that I have access to these two methods plus access to all these three methods as well. So that is a little bit different, which we haven't seen before. We were up until now, we were just creating a class and then methods, but now this is first time when we have created a class and extended from a parent class, or created a child class extended from a parent class. So now that gives us visibility to the parent methods. Okay. And our object creation remains the same. So you can see that I've created an object called C1, and with the help of C1, I have access to all the methods. Now, a question would be like, what happens if we create object of base class or like parent? So if I create object for parent, then I will have access to only parent methods. So if I say bark, I do not have access to it. So P1 has access to only eat, sleep, hunt. P1 won't have access to bark. So if I type B, see I do not get anything, or pet. If I type P, I do not get anything, right? So when I create an object of parent class, I will just have access to the parent method. But if I create an object of child class, I'll have access to child methods as well as parent method. So that is something very important to notice. And now there's third way of declaring things. As you can see here, it says eat, sleep, hunt successfully. The third way of doing it is, I'll say base class, and then I say new, or let me say if it is, and then I'll say new, and here I can mention and then if I see what all method I have access to, I have access to p2 dot, I do not have access to bark even now. What if I change this and make it here? Add cast to this. Cannot convert base class to this. Okay. There's one more way of declaration. I'll check that in next class and I'll show that to you. But these two are very basic and commonly and common type of object creation, which is like you can have your child class with you can create an object of your child class, you can create an object of your parent class as well, and then the only thing which changes is like the amount of methods you have access to. Okay, and this is like single level inheritance where you have one base class, then you have a child class, and then you are accessing methods in it. So this is one example. If I close these three, then the code which I already have has like animal inheritance. You can see that this is the parent class which has eat and says eating, and then this dog level child class which extends from animal single inheritance, and in main method I'm just creating an object of child class and showing that these two methods can be accessible. So if I run this code, eating and barking are enabled. Okay, so this is like single level inheritance. We'll study mul uh, multi-level and hybrid and hierarchical and all those in our next class, which is on Wednesday. If you have any questions while practicing, please do reach out to me. And the two assignments which will get activated today is, or like today are, let me go down. So assignment number 2, which is arrays and string. Wow, a lot of programs here. So assignment number 2, submission is here. Assignment submission 2. Wednesday should be a good time for assignment 2. Save, exit. And for assignment 3, which is classes and object. This one, assignment 3 is not a lot. It's very easy, just small code. So we can finish it in no time. The assignment 3 is here on Saturday, 11:30 p.m. See? Okay, so I've activated assignment 3 and assignment 2 and 3. You have to finish them by Saturday. By the time we reach there, we'll have assignment 4 and 5 ready for you to finish, and then we'll be due with our midterm exam.
Assignment 2 is due by Saturday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Assignment 3 is on Saturday. And then on Saturday, I'll activate assignment 4 because we will be done with these two topics by Saturday. Then exceptional handling will be next Wednesday. And then we are kind of exceptional handling and Java collection framework, we should finish by next Wednesday. So then assignment 5 will be unlocked. And that's it. Like after this part, we are almost done with Java. Then there'll be a midterm exam for everyone. And I'll share the details about midterm exam maybe next Wednesday. Or like, yeah, next Wednesday, not this one, the after this one. But in midterm exam, you'll have to write Java code, one Java code, and for Chaitra and Gladys, you will have more multiple choice questions which you have to attend, which will be for the manual part, which we finished on starting 3.5 weeks. I'll share the entire question paper with Chris and Lena as well. But the first part will not be marked for you guys. You the the focus would be on programming for you guys, but for Chaitra and Gladys, like even that would matter for you.
Exam is on spot or
No, I'll let you know in advance. So right after we finish Java completely, so let's say we finish Java this Saturday, so then the next Saturday we'll have exam. And it will be like take home exam for like 3 hours or 2 hours. So it will be we will decide on the time, and then whenever the time whatever time we agree, I'll share the question paper so you can take it and submit the results in like 2 hours or less. I think 2 hours or 2 to 3 hours exam. So any one day you have to give like 2 to 3 hours and finish the exam and submit the exam to me. Okay. That's it. So have a good weekend, guys. And if you have any question, please reach out to me.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.